Thanks for tuning in. This is Sweet Cyclist. Today we're going to be reviewing the Lupine Rotlicht Max bicycle taillight. So here we have the Lupine Rotlicht Max taillight. You might be more familiar with Lupine due to their mountain biking lights. They're pretty well known for their high build quality and high output. They've applied a lot of what they learned to their one and only taillight, and this is the Max version, which has the higher battery capacity. Packaging wise, pretty simple. You have a plastic cover here, which just pops open, and a cardboard sleeve on the inside. It's a German light as well. The name Rotlicht actually means red light in German, which is interesting as Topeak has Redlite, and I think Planet Bike has a Rojo, which means red in Spanish. So everyone's just using foreign languages. If we pop this open, I'll go over the specs. This is quite an expensive light, as a lot of Lupine lights are. It's $140, and as I mentioned, this is the higher battery capacity version. It has up to 60 hours of runtime. It also has two different sensors here. You have an ambient light sensor, and you also have a motion sensor. So it has a braking feature, which will throw it into a higher output mode, as well as adjust the output based on the ambient light sensing. What also sets this apart is the amazing build quality. As you can see, it's really robust. The back of this is not plastic, it's actually aluminum, so it's quite a bit heavier than a typical taillight. You get a single LED here and 4 different modes of operation. However, I think what really sets this apart from other taillights on the market is the fact that it's USB rechargeable and the battery is replaceable. So the battery is significantly cheaper than the purchase price, which means you can actually continue to use this light instead of having to chuck it once the battery dies. So this can definitely outlast your bike if you just keep purchasing new batteries over the years. It's a really nice touch and makes this more future-proof than a lot of lights. It's also IP68 rated, which means you can actually put this underwater for a prolonged period of time. So it's definitely very robustly built, and for a replaceable battery, it's really impressive to have such a high water rating. Now let's throw the Rotlicht Max onto the scale. As I mentioned, this is the Max version, which has the higher battery capacity, and with the aluminum housing, I certainly expect a higher weight. And not surprisingly, it's 80 grams. So now let's take a closer look at the fit and finish of the Rotlicht Max light. We start from the face of the light. You can see you have this clear body. They also sell a red version cover that's optional that you could screw back onto place and replace this. It's a single Cree design. So double tap to turn on. You can see one LED on the top. It's rather bulky for a single LED design, and I think that's because the bottom houses some of the additional sensors. As with other taillights, you can see the circuit board through the transparent body. You have a nice big rubber button here, really easy to use. It's almost as large as the lens cover itself. On the sides, you have not too much going on here. You have the wide back face of this, and this is aluminum, as I mentioned, not plastic, so it feels quite robust. On top, you have Lupine printed, and on the other side, again, not too much going on. The mounting bracket here is a simple rubber mount, which is kind of surprising, this rubber strap, especially at this price point. You might expect something more secure. However, you can see this feels quite thick, so I think it'll actually survive daily use. They also offer an optional second one inside the packaging that you could swap out for. And this is a little bit longer, so if you have a thicker C-post, you could use that, or if you want to mount it somewhere else. They don't include a body clip, however, you can purchase that separately. Again, the build quality, really nice. You have these nice rubber pads here to prevent scratching your frame. This won't work for Aero frames, obviously, because the angle here will kind of flop side to side. Now, as with other Lupine lights, it's highly configurable. Now, there's 4 different modes here. You double click to turn it on. You have a nice pulsing mode. You have a impulse mode. You have a steady mode, and then you have a normal flash mode. Now, within each of the modes, you can actually adjust the output for 5 different settings. Some of the modes only have 4 though, so the lowest setting is the same as the second highest. To adjust the different modes, you hold this down. You get one button, and you see that green light. Now it'll flash through 5 different settings of the light output. Now, depending on which mode you are on, it does have mode memory. This will adjust the mode output. So if I click, now I've selected the highest setting for whatever mode I happen to have been on when I turned it off. So if I switch to a different mode, turn it off, turn it back on, hold, let go, I can now configure each mode independently of one another. Now it's a pretty nice feature. I think most people might not use this as a factory settings are pretty good, but I feel like it's a really clever way to do this. They also have additional options, which I was really surprised to see. And you can actually see the little cheat sheet here, if it focuses. You have, again, if I hold this down, see green light, now I get 1 beep, 2 beeps, 3 beeps. Now each one of these, if I let go, has a different setting to it. So not only can I turn on the light sensor on and off, that ambient light sensor, but I can adjust the sensitivity between low and high. I can also adjust the sensitivity of the brake sensor between low, medium, high, or completely off, as well as turn on, enable or disable this double click to turn on feature. So really impressive. Typically lights with ambient light sensors and brake sensors typically are not adjustable, so that's really nice to see. Note from the factory, the light sensor is disabled, and this is consistent with other brands. By default, they turn it off as it's a little confusing, especially when you're in a store setting. So now I want to show you how the ambient light sensor works. As I mentioned, it's actually disabled from the factory, and there's also a brake sensor. So you can see the brake sensor here. If I'm in a normal flashing mode, it will always revert to the highest power steady mode if it detects motion. Now, one problem with this feature is you will get erratic battery life, as your battery life will be a mix between whatever mode you're in and the steady mode. So the other feature I wanted to show was how the ambient light sensor works. And by design, it's supposed to take the current mode and bump it up to the higher power setting if available. So I'll trick it by taking another light and flashing it toward it. Now, as you can see, this steady mode ramped up to a higher power. And as I go away, it will ramp down. So that's a nice feature. So if you have a car behind you, this will actually ramp up to make sure you're actually visible. So now let's compare the Lupine taillight versus some other taillights on the market. Here I have a selection of different form factors. I have the Bontrager Flare RT. And you can see similar style form factor. It's the same thickness, but the Lupine is 1.5 times bigger. USB rechargeable, and this is a $60 taillight. It does have an ambient light sensor, but just like the Lupine, it's disabled from the factory. It does not have the brake sensor. For a brake sensor, you can actually buy the Magic Shine CME 60, a 60 lumen, $35 light. So quite a bit cheaper. It actually has a metal housing on here, similar to the Lupine, but with a plastic body. This is USB rechargeable, has the brake sensor, but not the ambient light sensor. And it feels brighter on certain settings, but doesn't quite have the configurability or the replaceable battery, which is such a great feature on the Lupine. A simpler option is the $35 Rojo 100 from Planet Bike. So similar size here, but again, plastic body, non-replaceable battery, and no sensors on this. So if you want sensors and high configurability, I think this is one of the only taillights we've seen so far. Now let's take a look at the light output of the taillight. There are 4 different modes, and what I'm showing you here is the factory settings along with the power output and claimed runtime. There's steady mode, blinking mode, pulse mode, which ramps it up and down, and finally steady and pulse, which combines the two for a really cool effect. I really like this, especially for nighttime riding. It's also worth taking a look at the different brightness settings as it is adjustable for each mode. As you can see, the lowest setting is quite a bit dimmer than the brightest setting. So depending on the ambient conditions, you can really adjust it to optimize runtime or brightness. It's also worth taking a look at the braking feature. Here you can see me coming to a stop and it goes from pulse to steady. Now let's go over the pros and cons for the Rotlicht Max. One of the best things about the light is the build quality. It's one of the best quality lights we've seen, really well put together with the aluminum backing and then the polycarbonate lens, as well as the really impressive IP68 rating, which means this should be more durable than a majority of the taillights on the market. Also, the replaceable lithium polymer battery is a huge plus. You rarely see this outside of the AAA versions of taillights, so it's really something that can make this feature-proof. And the battery itself is really cheap compared to the actual light. It's also a really impressive amount of configurations. I haven't seen a light that gives you so many options. You have sensitivity settings on off for both the light sensor and brake sensor. So you can really customize it to exactly how you like it. Some of the cons, aside from the higher purchase price, is the large form factor. This is fairly bulky, particularly here in the Max form. It also lacks a clear battery indicator, which is kind of a surprise. Lupine has some really nice smart core batteries that have battery audio and visual indicators, so it's curious that's not here. It also lacks the auto on-off feature or the day-night options that other smart taillights have. Taking everything into account, I would give the light a 8.5 rating. I really like the fact that this is a replaceable lithium polymer battery, and it really sets that apart from other taillights on the market. Thanks for watching this review. If you like the content, don't forget to like and subscribe. You can see more content from us on our website at thesweetcyclist.com, as well as follow us on Instagram at The Sweet Cyclist. This is The Sweet Cyclist, reminding you to enjoy the ride.